Previously, Lin was caught while trying to put the thing in Hao's locker for the 8th time. Amidst a mixture of emotions, Hao throws it at him angrily. Lin catches the thing, and he immediately asks Hao how he found out that he is the one that has been putting the thing in his locker, and Hao immediately tells him that he had used a night tech anti-theft system. Hao then tells Lin that he would see him at the teacher's office, but Lin immediately instructs some girls to stop Hao from going out, and as Hao looks at the girls, he immediately tells himself that the girls know how to fight because of their strong physical appearance. The girls attack Hao after Lin gives them the order that they should drag Hao into the toilet, but Hao dodges their attacks, and when one of the girls did Hao, Yuhua, suddenly calls out to Hao, and she immediately begins to beat all the girls, but Hao tells her not to interfere. Hao calls out to Yuhua, but she does not listen. Then she goes ahead to strangle one of the girls, and the girl immediately tells her that she has accepted defeat. Then Hao goes to meet Yuhua and tells her that if she continues to beat up the students, they would get in trouble. Some students see Yuhua and they yell at her, but they are all distracted by the voice of the address system telling them of Lin's bad behavior towards Hao. Yuhua is sent home, and when Ling asks Hao the reason for her to go home, Hao tells him that he does not know anything about it, and he is also feeling difficult. Hao also begins to think about Yuhua and how her family is strict, which means that there would not be problems if they take her back. Hao goes home in the heavy rain that same day, and when he gets home, his father scolds him for not calling him to bring an umbrella for him. Then he immediately tells his father that he is okay as he would not catch a cold. Hao rushes into his room as his father wonders why he is such in a hurry, and when Hao gets to his room, he immediately calls Yuhua to check up on her, and when she picks, she begins to cry. Hao asks her why she is crying, then she replies him that it is dark where she is. Then Hao asks her where she is as he begins to wonder if she was not taken home, and she tells him that she is locked in a brig by her mother, as she is always locked there to reflect on her actions anytime she makes a mistake. She also adds that it takes 2 days before she can go out of the confinement, and she is getting scared, and Hao immediately tells her that he would continue to talk to her, and when he asks her what he should talk to her about, she tells him that he should talk about love. Hao then tells Yuhua that he would tell her about the novel he is writing, but while talking, he sneezes, and he yells her to relax as he is going to tell her about his story. Hao begins to tell Yuhua of his new novel, and how the main character is a reborn immortal cultivator who is the strongest man in the world. Yuhua tells Hao that his stories are unrealistic, as men are too weak to be lifting heavy bricks, because that is the work of the women in the world. Then she also assured him to read his novel and leave good comments for him. The following morning, Hao wakes up with a headache, and he suddenly sees his elder sister Qin, and she tells him that she wanted to wake him up for breakfast, but she realizes that he was already having a fever. Hao sits up and notices that his body is weak, and he tells himself that he had fallen sick because of the rain he entered the previous day. Then his sister tells him to use his drugs, and Hao becomes shocked as his sister puts the drug in her mouth, telling him that she would feed him. Hao becomes scared and tells himself that it is not possible for him to receive anything from his sister's mouth, and he immediately tells her that she should help him up so that he would be able to take his drug. After taking his drug, Qin begins to wonder if Hao had noticed anything in her, that she tells him that he should take his porridge while it is hot. Hao begins to ask himself why his elder sister is so kind to him, and he suddenly asks her why she is kind to him, because he is feeling like it is too comfortable for him. That she replies him that she is taking care of him because he worth it, and she also vows to take care of him all her life. Hao takes the porridge by himself, and he tells himself not to overthink his sister's kindness towards him. Then he tells her to go and do her chores as he would sleep for a while, but she tells him to sleep as she does not feel like doing anything. Few minutes later, Hao falls asleep and his sister looks at him as she begins to wonder if he hates her. Meanwhile, Wai Nan soars in her house, and she begins to remember how she had forcibly kissed Hao the first time. Then she tells herself that Hao is arrogant, and he is the most unique man she has ever met, and she also asks herself if she has become interested in Hao. Later that night, Hao suddenly hears his phone ringing, and as he picks it up, he asks who is calling him, and Wei tells him that she is the one, and he immediately asks her why she is calling him, and she tells him that she cannot sleep. Hao becomes angry and sits up, then he asks her why she is harassing him in the middle of the night, but Wei tells him to talk to her carefully. But Hao gets angry and tells her that she does not expect him to be polite after she is harassing a male high school student. Wei then tells Hao that she knows that he is learning martial arts from Yuhua, and Hao tells her not to spy on him again, but Wei tells him that she would offer him a standard martial art training, and he would be able to become a rich and famous bodyguard in the future. Hao gets furious and tells Wei that he is just practicing with his classmate, and he is not planning to use it for anything special. Then he immediately drops the call. The following morning, Hao gets out of bed and sees the jacket Qin had prepared for him to wear if he is going to the bathroom, and he tells himself that his sister is kind to him. Suddenly, Qin opens the door to Hao's room, and she brings out 2 clothes that Hao should pick the one she would wear for her. Then Hao becomes shocked as his sister had come to his room with only her underwear on. Ho picks the cloth and he tells himself that he would have had a nosebleed and died if he did not control himself. Then he also notices a tattoo on Kin's back. Kin comes to meet Ho and tells him to take care of himself as she is heading to the research institute. Then after Kin had left, Ho begins to think of how nice his new world is, but he tells himself that he still has to make money so that he would look for how he would go back to his real world, as he is already missing everything there. Ho remembers how he has been looking for ways to make money, but he suddenly remembers that he was told that he could get 50,000 yuan for reporting Liu Xin. Ho goes to the police station to go and claim his money, but the officer he met on duty tells him that he would have to go through a process which would last a month before he gets the bonus. Ho asks the name of the bonus provider so that he could go to the person to claim his bonus in person. Then the officer tells him that it is Wei. Then Ho goes to the company to talk to Wei, but he tells himself that it is embarrassing for him to hang up the phone on Wei the previous night and still go to her office in the morning to ask for money. At the elevator, Ho asks a lady how he can get to the top floor, and the lady immediately helps him. But while they are in the elevator, the lady presses her melons against Ho's face, and she asks him if he is in middle school, but Ho gets uncomfortable, and fortunately for him, they get to the top floor, and he immediately leaves the elevator. As Ho tries to leave the elevator, the lady pulls him back and closes the elevator. Then she begins to tell him that she has fallen in love with him. But as Ho begins to look for how he would leave, the elevator door suddenly opens and Wei sees the two in a tight situation. The lady immediately kneels and Wei fired her, but Ho tells her not to beg Wei, as it would be easy for her to see another job, and the lady tells him that if other companies knows that Wei had fired her by herself, they would not want to accept her. Wei tells the lady to leave, and she immediately drags Ho to her office, and she asks him why he was flirting with another lady in her presence. Ho then tells Wei that he was not flirting with the lady, as she was only guiding him to the top floor. Then he moves away and goes to sit in the chair as he tells Wei that she should not fire the lady as she meant no harm, and she does not also have the right to fire her for no reason. Wei also asks Ho what he was discussing with the lady, and he tells her that she is too nosy, as she always wants to know what is going on with him. Then Ho begins to look at Wei's laps, and he tells himself that she has a bad persona, but she has a good figure as a result of her exercises. Wei catches Ho looking at her laps, and she tells him that they would play a game if he wants the lady to stay in the company, as she would throw the cigarette with her up, and she would use her left hand while he uses his own right hand to catch the cigarette. She then adds that if he catches the cigarette before her, she would let the lady stay in the company, and Ho accepts the offer, and Wei immediately drops the cigarette, and Ho tells her that she is cheating, as she did not tell him that they have started the game. Ho immediately catches the cigarette, and when he shows Wei, she suddenly sits on his laps facing him, and he tells himself that she is throwing herself at him, and he would not resist her. Then he rolls up his sleeves, but Wei tells him that he is not reserved, as he is rubbing her thighs. Then he tells her that she is taking advantage of him, and he cannot resist it. Ho also tells Wei to stand up from his laps, as she has been doing that to him, which makes him think that she likes him. And Wei confesses to Ho that she likes him, and he is the only boy she has ever had such feelings for. And Ho immediately tells her that she should give him the 50,000 yuan. Then she tells him that she would give him, but she has to go to the bathroom first. Suddenly, Kin calls Ho, and she tells him that he is not obedient to stay at home as she has instructed, and he immediately tells her that Long had told him to help her with her homework in her house, but he also assured her that he would go back home. Kin also adds that she is going to a party, and she would be home later in the night, and he should also be careful when he is going home. But as Kin drops the call, a lady tells her that the tattoo on her back is nice, and she tells the lady that the tattoo is the names of some important people to her. Ho drops the call, and he tells himself that his sister must be busy, and he takes the cigarette he caught. Then he lights it to smoke, and when Wei comes out of the bathroom, Ho looks at her, and he tells himself how beautiful she is compared to Kin. Wei suddenly asks Ho if kids smoke, and he tells her that he only lighted it to smell it. Then he also asks her why she went to change her clothes in the bathroom, and she tells him that she is a normal woman, and he should not tempt her in the future as she cannot resist his temptation. Ho begins to wonder how perverted Wei is, and he tells her that she should give him the money so that he would leave and not seduce her again. Wei replies Ho that she does not think that he would be able to collect the money, as the cigarette he too is worth 60,000 yuan in the market, and it means that he is owing her an extra sum of 10,000 yuan. Ho becomes angry, and he begins to yell at Wei, as he yells her that she thinks he does not study well. Then she immediately tells him to check the price of the cigarette online, and when Ho checks it, he discovers that she is telling the truth. Wei then tells Ho that the price of the cigarettes is real, but he does not have to pay it, as she was just teasing him, and she immediately reaches out to her drawer and brings out an envelope which contains the sum of 50,000 yuan and hands it to Ho. Ho tells Wei that she is trustworthy even though she has a bad temper, and he also adds that his behavior may seem inappropriate to her, but he suggests that they see each other less in the future, as he would like to erase their past. Ho begins to leave the office and he announces to Wei that he is leaving, and he also tells her to brush her hair and take care of herself as he has just caught a cold, which may be contagious. As Ho walks away from the office, he begins to think of he should feel as he learns that Wei has an interest in him, but he tells himself that he does not want to think about it. Meanwhile, in their house, Kin invited her friend over and they are checking out the photos she has of Hall. Then her friend tells her that she understands that it is because of her younger brother that is why she has refused to hang out with her friends. But Kin adds that they have known each other since they were little, even though he is her stepbrother. Hao opens the door and he sees his sister and a visitor. Then he asks his sister why she is back so early, as she had told him that she would be back later in the night. But Win immediately tells herself that Ho must not see the photos she has of him. Kin thinks of what to do so that Hao would not see the photos, and when her friend tries to talk to Hao about why they are doing, Kin immediately pinches her friend and she gives her a sign to hide the book, and she immediately tells Hao that she and her friend are reading a literature book. Then Hao asks what literature they are reading, as he would love to read as well. Kin stands up to walk up to Hao, and she suddenly falls, but Hao catches her and she tells him that she had warned him to stay and rest at home. But Hao tells her that he was bored at home and he had to just go outside for a while. Kin begins to scold Hao that he was supposed to stay at home as his face may cause trouble for him and his family. Then Hao replies to his sister and tells her that he promises to take care of her and also protect her against any harm. Soon, Hao tells the ladies that he is going to his room to rest, and when Ho leaves, Kin's friend Jua asks Kin what she is doing, as she does not want her brother to see the album of photos she has of him. But Kin tells Jua that she should not blame her, as she has her reasons. In his room, Ho begins to ask himself why he always gets tired anytime he meets Wei, and as he continues to think, he suddenly sees someone through his window, and he suspects that the person is looking at him, and he also begins to wonder if he has gotten involved with another person again. But he becomes calm a little as he realizes that the person is a man. Ho begins to wonder if he should tell Kin, as his father and stepmother are not in town because of their business trip. Ho goes downstairs and he sees his sister bidding her friend farewell as she leaves, and Ho asks Tin why her friend is leaving early, and she tells him that she has a lot of things to do, which is why she had left early. Kin then asks Hao why he is not resting as he had told her, and Hao tells her that he had seen a man outside their house, and the man seems to be sneaking around. And he also adds that he does not know what to do, as he does not want his sister to be worried. And Kin becomes happy as she sees that Hao is worried about her. Kin tells Hao that he does not need to worry himself, as the man outside their house is her suitor, who he had also met before. Then she adds that he was the person that chatted her and sent her a picture some times ago. After understanding the situation, Hao then asks his sister if he can go to school the following morning, because he had not taken a leave from school, but Kin asks him if he has a girlfriend in school, because he is in a hurry to go back to school. Ho begins to laugh as he tells his sister that he is following his sister's advice not to fall in love in school, and Kin immediately hugs Hao, and she tells him that she would be rest assured if he does not lie to her, because having him as her younger brother is a happy trouble. She also tells herself that she would make sure she keeps Ho by her side, and when he asks her what she said, she tells him not to worry, and she also adds that she would drive him to school the following day. The following morning, Kin drops Hao at school, and she tells him to stay indoors because of his cold. When Hao enters the school hallways, Ling comes to meet Hao and tells him that people are not talking to Yuhua, as they think she would beat up students at random, as she had beaten the students that was behind the scandalous act they did to Hao. Hao immediately tells Long that it is his fault, and they would have to go and visit Yuhua later. Later that afternoon, Ho goes to visit Yuhua in her class, and after greeting her, he apologizes to her for involving her in the incident with the students, and he also tells her if they encounter such an incident in the future, they would learn from it and act softly. Yuhua asks Hao if he is afraid of her, and he tells her that he cannot be afraid of her if she is obedient as a friend. Then she thanks him and tells him that she is happy as she can do anything if he is by her side. The bell for classes rings, and Hao tells Yuhua that he is leaving and they would have lunch together later. But as he leaves Yuhua, some students begins to talk about them, and one of them tells the other that even though Yuhua is a violent person, she is still fitness with Hao, and the other student replies that she doesn't mind being isolated if she is friends with a male god. During lunch, Hao and Yuhua sit together in a spot, and she watches as Hao lunches in his lunch. Then she opens her own lunch, and Hao immediately tells her that her lunch is nice. He begins to eat the food, and she looks at him and asks him if she can hold his hands. Then Ho becomes shocked, as he knows that a boy's hand is equivalent to a girl's thigh in his new world. Ho asks Yuhua who taught her and why she wants to hold his hand, but she replies him that she saw his hand, and she felt like holding it. Then Ho stretches his hand, and tells her that it is no problem, but he also adds that she should not say it in front of Long, as he would yell at her and call her a pervert. While holding Hao's hand, Yuhua begins to tell him how the other students in her class makes fun of her for not kissing a boy or holding a boy's hand. Then she asks Hao if he has experienced such, and he tells her that it is normal for them to be like that, as they would tend to bully her, because they have experienced or felt the opposite sex of body, which would make them feel like adults and also gives them the reason to look down on other people. Hao also adds that she should not feel less of herself. Then she replies him that her grandmother had told her that a woman should not be looked down upon, but suddenly, Yuhua asks Hao if she can kiss him, and he becomes shocked at her question. But he tells himself that he would do whatever would make her feel better. He also tells her that he would allow her to kiss him. Then he leans forward, and she asks him what he is trying to do. Then he tells her that he is going to try it for the first time, and if she becomes shy, she can close her eyes. Yuhua becomes calm, and she closes her eyes as Ho leans forward and kisses her. While kissing Hao, Yuhua begins to wonder what is wearing with her as her heart is beating fast. Then they are interrupted by a sound from the door, but when Ho gets startled, Yuhua tells him that she locked the door. The students at the other end of the door begins to wonder why the door is locked, and when they see that they are not able to gain access to the piano room, they leave the door. Hao then tells Yuhua that she has also kissed a boy, and she would not be feeling bad about herself, but she asks him if she is sick as her heart was beating faster when they kissed. Hao becomes very shocked as Yuhua places his hand on one of her melons so that he would feel her heartbeat, and he tells himself that Yuhua is too innocent, and he feels as if he is taking advantage of her. But he also asks himself if Yuhua like him, then he ignores the question. He quickly takes his hand away and tells her that she was only getting excited as a result of the feeling of them kissing, and she immediately tells him that she would like to kiss him more often, so that she would feel like that because she likes the feeling. Hao then explains to Yuhua that kissing is meant for male and female friends, and she would not want to ask any other person to kiss her, but he also assures her that he would teach her some things in the future. Later that night in her house, Yuhua decides to check out what Hao had told her, and when she checked it, she tells herself that her heart is not beating fast, and she decides to call him. Hao picks the call, and he asks Yuhua if she is okay, but he remembers how he also felt when he kissed her, and he smiles. Then she tells him that she has watched the films Wang Yuan gave her, but she does not understand them. Hao immediately tells Yuhua that she should not bother herself with things like that, but she immediately asks him if it is okay for her to ask him such questions, and he replies her that he is fine by it, but she must not ask other guys such question. Hao tells her that he wants to hang up as he is about to take a shower, but Yuhua also tells him that she also wants to take a shower, but she asks Hao if they can continue talking on the phone while taking their shower. Hao agrees to chat with Yuhua while in the shower, and she gets excited, but he yells at her to make sure she keeps her phone away from getting wet. Then she immediately does that, and she begins to undress. Yuhua tells Hao that she is undressing, and he becomes uncomfortable, but after a while, they finish their bath, and Hao tells her to study well as he is going to send her some workout articles to read about so that she would have the knowledge. Meanwhile, Kin hears as Hao was talking in the shower, and she begins to wonder who he is talking to. Then she asks herself if he already has a girlfriend, but she takes her phone and messages Long to ask him if Hao has a girlfriend. After inquiring from Long, Kin tells herself that Hao does not have a girlfriend, and it gives her more chance to get in for herself. Ho goes back to his room, and he sees Kin in the bed, but when he asks her, she tells him that she wants to invite him to watch a movie together, but she had fallen asleep while waiting for him to finish from the shower. Ho becomes shocked as he tells himself that his sister is in the room with him, and it would be bad if he searches about workout knowledge in front of her. He immediately tells himself that he would send a message to Yuhua to inform her of his setback and continue to deal with his sister, but after sending the message, he asks his sister the kind of movie she would like to watch, and she replies that she was thinking about watching a horror movie. Hao points out that Kin is sweating, and he suggests that she goes to take a shower, but she tells him that he should wait for her in the living room while she takes her shower, and he should also pick the movie they would watch. As Hao walks down the stairs, he begins to think of what his sister is up to as he remembers in his world that while watching a horror movie, a girl wraps herself and hides under a man's arm and she gets scared, but he tells himself that it would be reversed in his new world as his sister might think that he would fall into her arms if he is scared. Hao continues to think, but he is interrupted when he sees his sister walking down the stairs, and when she moves closer to him, he begins to look at her, and he tells himself that he could not resist her, but Kin asks Hao the movie he had chosen, and he is lost in thoughts. Then she begins to wonder why he is looking at her and blushing. Kin asks Hao what is wrong with him, and he tells her that he is okay as he is only feeling hot. Hao then plays the movie, and he tells himself that if his sister comes closer to him, he would not be able to control himself. Then Kin begins to look at Hao, and she also tells herself that she should take her time as she would not want to scare Hao away. The movie starts, and Hao tells himself that the movie is a gender-reversed horror movie, and it does not make him scared at all, but he suddenly notices that his sister is shaking with fear. He asks her if she is scared, and she tells him that he should not think that she is a coward. But she also tells herself that she should have not suggested the horror movie, as she thought Ha would be scared and cling to her, which would give her the perfect moment to become close to him. Ha pulls Kin closer, and he immediately tells her that it is normal for her to be scared, and Kin tells him that she is relieved, as she had thought he is thinking of her in a bad way. Ha begins to tell himself that he can feel that his sister's heartbeat increases any time he is close to her, but he suddenly checks her melons and tells himself that he does not have any unreasonable thoughts about her. Then he suddenly thinks about his father's beating, and he becomes startled. Kin asks Ha what he is thinking about, and he tells her that he is not thinking about anything then. Soon the movie finishes, and Ha tells his sister that they should go to bed, but while going to his room, she follows him and tells him that she wants to sleep in his room with him because she is scared of the movie they watched. Ha agrees, and they both lay on the bed, but while in bed, Kin tells Ha that she saw a scary figure, but he tells her that she should be calm, as he would not dislike her, because she is scared of horror movies. Then, Kin becomes emotional, and she immediately hugs Ha, which makes him feel uncomfortable. Then she suddenly kisses his neck. The next morning, Kin wakes up, and she tells herself that she slept well as she slept in Hao's arms, and she checks him, but he is feeling uncomfortable. Then she takes him and tells him that they would not watch horror movies again. Kin tells Ha that she would make custard for him, and he gets out of bed to prepare for school. While brushing his teeth, Ha receives a message from Long as he threw old Zhao that he had used his picture as an emoji, but he does not know that it would gain popularity. Ha becomes angry, and he tells himself that he would deal with Long so as to retain his masculinity. But as Ho goes to meet his sister to tell her that he is going to school, he sees her on her phone, and she tells him to be careful at school. Ha asks his sister what she is looking at on her phone, and she tells him that she just received an emoji with his face on it. Then he tells her not to use it, and she tells him that she is not going to use it, and she tells herself that his beauty is meant for her alone. In school, Ha walks and the students begins to talk about him as the face on the emoji they had seen, but Ha tells himself that he does not want to be popular again. Then some students stop him and asks for his signature as they tell him that he would be a star in the future, but Ha tells them to leave him alone as he is not the one on the emojis they had seen. Ho goes to meet Long, and he immediately asks him why he has posted pictures of him, but Long tries to explain, and Yuhua comes on to ask Ha if he is unhappy. Ha immediately tells her that he is fine, and he notices that she has cut her front hair, but when he asks her why, she had told him that he had told her to get a cut. Yuhua tells Ha that she wants to take him to her secret base, where she feels better. When they get there, they sit under a desk, and Ha begins to get uncomfortable as they hear two students making out, but when Yuhua tries to tell Ha something, he uses his hand to cover her mouth so that she would not be able to talk. Then, he suddenly notices that she is licking his palm. Ha removes his palm, and he becomes shocked at what is happening to him. Then Yuhua tells him that she also wants to try what the kids are doing. Then she jumps on Ha and begins to kiss him, and Ha begins to wonder what he would do as he finds Yuhua attractive. Then he asks himself if he should try to date Yuhua, so that his sister would stop making weird advances at him. Ha does not hold back, but Yuhua removes her mouth as she is unable to breathe. Then he tells her that she needs to breathe while kissing. They both go back to the classroom, and Ho begins to think of what to do about his predicament. Meanwhile, in Y's house, her assistant tries to explain to her that she would not be able to delete Hao's pictures on every phone, as it is not possible because some of his picture must have been saved, but Y tells her assistant that she should try all means possible to make sure the photos are taken down from the internet. White adds that Hao is her man, and she doesn't want anything that would disturb him or hinder her from getting close to him. As the assistant leaves, White begins to check the pictures on the internet, and she tells herself that people are saying bad things that she does not like about her man. Then, while she looks at her desk, she realizes that there is much work for her, but she tells herself that she is not able to concentrate because of Hao, and how he would not accept her offer of him dating her. We also remembers the way she kissed Hao, and she begins to tell herself that Hao will be her man by all means possible. While heading home, Ho sees a car parked in front of his house, and when he goes closer, he realizes that it is Y. Hao then tells her that she should stop stalking him, but instead she pulls him close and tells him that she cannot control the way she feels towards him. Ho enters the car so as not to be seen by Kin and begins to explain to Wei that she is not the kind of woman he likes because she is too bossy and always wants him to listen to whatever she says. Wei tells him that she does not like the way his pictures are everywhere and she only wants him to be her man. Then Ho begins to explain to her that she should try to go out with other men so that she would see that he is not as good for her as she thinks. Wei confronts Ha as she asks him if he likes Yuhua, but he tells her to take Yuhua out of their discussion. Ha tells Wei that he is leaving, and he leaves the car after telling her to go home and rest. Then as he is about to enter the door to his house, a man comes to meet him, and introduces himself as Kin's friend. Then he tells Hao that he should help him to give his sister a gift, but Hao recognizes the man as someone he has met before. Hao recognizes the man as the person that has been sending dirty pictures to his sister, and he immediately tells the man that he should stay away from his sister or else he is going to report him to the police for harassing his sister. Hao walks in, and the man begins to tell himself that he would make sure he gets Kin for himself, as he would not be stopped by a school student who had just given him an empty threat. Hao enters the house and Kin tells him that she had gotten a fast food for them, as she is lazy to cook, but when they begin to eat, they discuss how it is good for them to be eating fast foods at time. But Hao suddenly notices that Kin is teasing him, but he tries to control himself, as it is not the first time she is doing that. Soon, Kin begins to talk about how she sees that Hao is trending on the internet, but Hao tells her that she is teasing him, but Kin tells herself that she does not know how many people are fascinated by his appearance. Later that night, Hao sits in his room and Kin comes to meet him as she tells him that she would love to work with him. Suddenly, Kin gives Hao a sum of 3,000 yuan, and she tells him to keep it for her so that she would not spend it, and she begins to tell Hao of her achievements as a medical student so that he would see how hardworking she is. Hao finds it hard to control himself around his sister, but while he was working on his laptop, he notices that Kin is looking at him, and suddenly, she tells him to come and give her a massage as her arm hurts after using the computer. While giving her the massage, Kin tells Hao that they should go out on the weekend. Then Hao begins to wonder, as it is the first time they would plan an outing together. Hao agrees to go out with his sister, and she immediately tells him that she would plan for their date, and Hao becomes shocked at the statement. Kin checks the time and she realizes that it is already late. Then she bids Hao goodnight as she goes to her room. Then Hao prepares to sleep, but he gets a call from Wei, and when he picks it, he tells her to stop pestering him. Then she begins to tell him the story of how she hates men while growing up due to what she had witnessed her mother do. Hao insists and tells her to leave him alone, and he drops the call, but before sleeping, Hao pities Wei, and he goes to bed, but he gets a disturbing nightmare. In school the following day, Hao begins to think that Kin is getting worried about him after his picture surfaced online, and suddenly, he sees Yuhua, who tells him that she could not sleep because she was thinking of kissing him. Hao immediately tells her not to think about it, as they are not supposed to be kissing in school. Then he invites her to his house for a kiss. During lunch, Hao gets more attention from the ladies in the school as they all rush to follow him to see if they would get his signature. But as Hao passes through the crowd, a girl touches his rice cakes and Yuhua grabs the girl, and when she is about to hit the girl, Hao immediately tells her to let it go. While two male students begins to talk about Hao, they suddenly hear a student saying that a popular billionaire is in their school, and she is there to see Hao. While going for lunch with Yuhua and Long, Hao suddenly gets a call from Wei, who tells him that she is in his school, and she would want him to follow her to have his lunch, but Hao immediately tells her that he has to eat lunch with his friends. But Wei immediately shows Hao that she would eat lunch with him at all costs if he refuses to follow her. Hao immediately tells her to hold on as he would come and meet her. Then he also tells her that she should ditch her convoy in her car so that they would go to a quiet place to eat. Hao tells Yuhua to eat with Long as he has to take care of something. Then he goes to meet Wei, who disguises herself with a cap. Then Hao takes her to a local restaurant and tells her that he wants to eat there, as he tells himself that he wants her to dislike him. As they enter the restaurant, Wei becomes irritated by the look of the place, and she immediately takes out her card to buy the whole place, but Hao tells her that she has to see the way he lives his life so that she can be used to it. They order noodles, and Wei asks if the food would be okay and prepared in a clean and neat way with fresh ingredients, but the attendants newcomers are angry. But as she is about to yell at Wei gives her more money, and she immediately goes to prepare the food. When the food is done, they begin to eat, and Wei asks how he had learned how to kiss, and he tells her throat she should not ask him such questions. Then she tells him that she must not find out that he is in any relationship. Later that day, Hao and Long stay in Long's house, and he shows Hao different colors of lipstick to choose from. But when Hao tells him that he is leaving, he tells him not to go as he wants to take him to his younger sister Linling. Long and Hao go to meet Linling, and they discover that she is having weird thoughts of her and Hao. Then Hao tells her that she must be disciplined, and he immediately tells her he would also grant her a request if she knows a good girl and face her studies. Kin calls Hao, and she asks him if he is still in his friend's place, and she also suggests that she comes to pick him up, but Hao tells her that he is fine. Kin's friend asks her who she is talking to, and she tells him that it is a handsome man she is hoping to have something with, and the friend tells her to be careful but unknown to her. The man who had been sending her pictures heard, and he begins to wonder why she doesn't like him back. Kin goes back home, and she notices that Hao has gone to his live broadcast. Then she immediately goes to shut his system down as she tells him to stop playing. In school the following morning, Ho begins to think of how Tin had reacted to him the previous night, and he tells himself that she is becoming sensitive to issues regarding him. He also receives a message, and when he checks it, he realizes that he made some money from the broadcast he did the night before. Then he begins to wonder the amount of money he would get if he continues to do the live broadcast. While walking to his class, Ho sees a huge number of students with placards with his name on it, and Long immediately tells him that they are his fans. Then Ho becomes fed up, and he leaves to go to the boys' locker room. As Ho is changing in the locker room, he notices that the squad leader is trying to get a picture of him, and he immediately confronts the squad leader with Long. Then he eventually scares him off, and when Long asks him if the squad leader was planning to use his photos to blackmail him, Ho replies him and tells him that he is not afraid of being photographed. After school, Ho decides to track the squad leader so that he would be able to know what his intentions are, and while Ho follows the squad leader, he suddenly sees that the squad leader is abducted right in front of him. Ho rushes to check who the kidnappers are, but he sees some men in a car, and he asks the man if he was sent by Wei. Ho immediately calls Wei and asks her why she has kidnapped the squad leader. Then she tells him that the squad leader is disturbing him, and she would let him pay for disturbing her man. Ho then tells Wei that she should leave him alone as he is able to handle his own affairs, and after yelling at her, Ho drops the call. The following day at school, Ho becomes stressed, and when he sees the squad leader, he notices that the squad leader has become so respectful. While walking into the class, Yuhua comes to meet Ho, and she asks him why he is unhappy. Then he tells her that he is having a headache. Immediately, Yuhua tries to massage Ho's head, but he tells her that he is fine. Yuhua then calls Ho, and she hugs him as she tells him that she would be happy if she hugs and kiss Ho. However, Ho tells himself that he would also love to make her happy. Ho thanks her, and he sees that hugging her feels different than hugging Kin and Wei, and he sees that his heart feels more relaxed. He sees that Xianru is very beautiful, but she dares not talk wildly with him since she is his stepsister. He also sees that Wei's own is very aggressive, and he finalizes that being with Yuhua is the most peaceful as he enjoys hugging her. She tries to kiss him, but he immediately pulls her back, and he tells her that she should calm down and not act impulsive. Ho said that he does not want to act in any drama in school that can pass the trial, and he tells her to calm down. He then asks her if she recites the sutra silently. She tells him that she won't. He then tells her to calm down, and he tells her that the movies she has watched are only for couples to do, and they both begin to talk about love. She asks him if he feels that way towards her, and he tells her that he would like to date her for love and not lust. She becomes speechless, and he tells her that they should go back to class since she does not understand what he is saying, and he sees that he regards her as a true friend, and he is not willing to hurt her. He suddenly receives a phone call from his brother, and Long tells him that he has been staying together with Yuhua lately, and he asks Ho if she has done anything strange to him. But he tells Long that he will be careful, and he needs not to worry about him. Ho then sees that he has to be on the safe side by keeping his distance with her, and he tells her to go on as he will want to go get a bottle of water. She becomes sad as she is shocked as they go to get water together, and Ho takes his leave. Ho begins to play a game, and his sister tells him to go and rest as he plays the game a lot, and he needs to rest. She then tells him to lie down as she tells him that she will give him a body massage, and they begin to talk about sizes of different things. Ho sees that his sister is too close, and he begins to perceive her fragrance. She begins to take off his shirt, and she sees that he has abdominal muscles, and he tells her that he has been working out, and she tells him that she is surprised that he has muscles. She begins to touch his navel, and she sees that he looks horny, and she begins to take off his shorts and begins to wonder what she is doing. She tells him not to be shy as it is part of the surrounding, and because she is also a doctor. Ho becomes nervous, and he asks his sister if she really wants to see it, and she begins to laugh and tells him that she was teasing him as it cannot be shown to her casually. She immediately leaves the room, and Ho notices that she was shy and sees that it was pretty cute. The following morning, he wakes up and greets his sister, and she tells him to come and have breakfast, and she tells him that she is going on a date with him, and she tells him to go and change his clothes in his room. Ho sees that he should not think about anything bad about his sister, as he is only going to hang out with her. An hour later, his sister comes out, and he sees that she is nicely dressed, and he sees that she is better dressed than the internet celebrities, and he tells her that he is going to change his clothes, and he tells her to wait for him. His sister agrees, and they head out to Wandi Square. Ho notices a man, and his sister sees that she has been discovered by her suitor, and she will be followed throughout the day. Ho sees that it is wrong that he is following her around, and he tells her that he would like to warn him as he has caused her so much trouble, but she tells him to leave him as they are still colleagues in the research institute, and she doesn't want it to get tense. His sister then asks for a favor, and she tells him that she wants the man to give up chasing her and asks him if he can be her boyfriend throughout the day. She begins to beg him, and Ho tells her that he can as long as she does not mind, and she becomes happy and begins to thank him. Ha then tells her to follow him as he promises to take her to a fun place. They head into a store, and she tells him that she heard that little boys like what is in the store, and she tells him to give their family a few. Ha agrees, and they begin to have a great time. She then suggests they go over at a place to rest, seeing that they are tired, and Ha stops her and tells her that the guy stalking her has not left, and he thinks they should act more closer since they are pretending to be a couple. They begin to talk for a while, and she tells Ha that he is coming towards them, and she immediately kisses him, and Ho becomes surprised. The stalker sees that they are kissing in public, and he sees that they are shameless, and he begins to leave. She begins to think about some things, and she tells Ha that she is sorry for taking his kiss without his consent, and Ha tells her that it is fine, and he begins to look for the stalker. She sees that Ho did not push her away, but acts negatively after the kiss. Also, she sees that he is shy, and she begins to wonder if he likes her close contact. She apologizes to him again, and she tells him that she just wanted to act and the situation is so intense, and she was so stressed, and she kissed too much. She begins to cry, and she tells him that he can do anything to her, but must not get angry at her. Ha stops her and he tells her that he is not angry, and begins to wonder if they are crossing the line, seeing that they are not siblings. They begin to talk about it, and she tells him that he does not need to bother himself about it, since they are not related by blood, and she gives him an example of a man that kisses his own sister as a sign of good feelings. She tells him that they have a good relationship and kissing is nothing. Ha becomes speechless, and she asks him if he likes to kiss her, and he begins to wonder why she asked him the question. Ha begins to think about the reply he would give, and he sees that he does not want to spoil the relationship he has with his sister and his family. He then tells her that it is best not to be casual. She immediately pauses for a while, and she sees that he is not disgusted, meaning that he has a good impression of her, and she tells him that they are lovers for the day and they are going to have a couple's day. She tells him that the stalker will not give up that easily, and she offers to take him out for lunch. Suddenly, some two things that have been watching them walk up to them, and Hao's sister tells them to get out. They begin to wonder who she is to tell them to get out, and she sees that she has a pocket knife in her pocket, and she sees that if she does not use it, her brother will be beaten by the thugs. She hands them the money she has and tells them to leave, but they refuse, and they begin to threaten them. Hao immediately insults them, and they try to attack him, but he blows one of the thugs and asks the other one to come also, but they both run away. Kin begins to wonder when he became strong and powerful, as she remembers that he did not have such a temper before. She sees that since childhood, they have always been together, and even though he said he does not want to see her again, she has been in the dark watching him, and he was not aware. She sees that she managed to become his sister, and she notices that he is no longer clingy to the internet, and she wants to know why. She begins to wonder if it is because they are growing up, and he walks into the room, and he asks her what she is thinking, and she tells him that it is nothing and tells him that he should go and take a bath and relax first. While taking his bath, she goes to his computer to see what he has been doing, and she notices that he has a novel written by himself, and Hao sees that the novel has to be updated as it has been broken for 3 days. He finishes his bath and goes to the room, and he sees his sister, and he asks her if she has ever browsed before, and she tells him to forget it. She then offers him a glass of milk and asks him what he has written, and she tells him to show it to her. He tells her that it is nothing, and she begins to wonder if he is writing something about her that he is not able to read, and she tells him he has been acting strange, and she is worried about him. Ho begins to wonder what she means, and he asks her if they know each other before, and she remains speechless and tells him that they knew each other since their childhood. Ho begins to think about what she has said, and she tells him that they were in the same nursery school as kids, and she asks him if he really does not remember anything. Even his sister, and Hao begins to laugh, telling her that it has been so long, and he could not remember. Ho begins to see why she looked familiar when they first met each other, and he begins to think of a way to sway the conversation as he does not want her to be sad. He begins to tell her of a little girl he dreamed of and how he was bullied when he was in school, but he took time to learn Muay Thai. He then tells her that the reason he rushed up to deal with those gangsters that attacked them was because of her by his side, and he is certain that she will not allow him to have an accident. She draws him close to her chest, and she tells him that she will not allow him to have an accident, and Hao sees that showing weakness to his sister really works well. Kin sees that he does not remember all that happened when they were young, and she begins to think if it is because he is scared of her, and she plans to make up for it. She tells him that he still scares her, and she has to punish him, and she begins to tickle him. They begin to laugh, and they both fall on the bed. Kin tells him not to scare her anymore, and he promises not to, and she begins to look at his body. She then tells him that they agree to be a couple for the whole day, and the day has not passed, and she climbs on him, and she tells him that they are not siblings but lovers. Ha tries to take her mind off it, but she tells him to relax as it is only for a day as they have kissed before, and there is nothing wrong if they kiss again. Suddenly their parents arrive while they were almost kissing, and Kin becomes surprised that they are back from their trip so early, and she begins to go to her room so that they will not discover something awkward between them. Ha sees that she wanted to work out with him, and she begins to have an old memory of her life before then. Wen begins to remember old memories of how she met with Hao, and she sees that she did not expect the plan to go smoothly as she has kissed him, and she did not refuse him, and she begins to wonder if he likes her too. She smiles and she tells herself that she is happy as she sees that she is in love with Hao. Meanwhile, Hao continues to think about everything in his room, and he sees that his sister is so nice as she can do anything for him. He also sees that he has a crush on her, and every time he sees her, his heart beats. He begins to see that he has always dreamt of dating such a goddess, and he begins to wonder what his father would think. They'd all appear at the table for a family dinner, and Kin is asked if she took care of Hao when they were away, and she tells them that Hao has grown and he is even taking care of them. Hao then stands up and tells them that he is going to play at his friend's place, and their father sees that Kin is happy, and their mom sees that a happy thing has happened. On Hao's way out, he sees that his sister did not stop him from going out, and he sees Yulua, and she tells him that she has come to pick him up. Hao begins to wonder why she is there, and she tells him that she misses him, and that is why she wants to come and pick him up. He then smiles at her, and he begins to follow her. They arrive at Yua's house, and she tells him that her parents are not around, and it's just the two of them at home. She then asks him what he wants to play, and he suggests Moonlight, as it is easy to be misunderstood as always. Hao becomes surprised that her house even comes with its own swimming pool, and he tells himself that it is nothing as they all live in big villas, so the pool is not shocking to him. She tells him that she wanted to show him the armory, but the housekeeper said otherwise, so she decided to move it to the pool. Hao then tells her that he did not bring a swimsuit for swimming, and she tells him not to worry as the butler has already prepared for them. Hao then suggests a swimming competition, and Yua agrees to it. He looks at the swimsuits and he sees that he cannot wear them, and he begins to feel awkward. He sees that he cannot complain as he plans to go back to the original world so much. He grumbles for a while, and he sees another swimsuit on the wardrobe, and he sees that it looks good and does not appear to be poisonous. He suddenly notices that a pair of underwear has fallen out of it, and he begins to wonder what it was doing there, and it feels suspicious. He immediately ignores it and puts it on. He comes out, and Yulua tells him that his swimsuit is great, despite the fact that Hao sees it as tight on him. Hao also tells her that her swimsuit is great, and urges that they start the competition as he would like to see how good her swimming is. They begin the competition, and Hao is called by a lady, and he is told that Yulua is drowning, and he becomes scared. Hao rescues her and asks her if she is okay. Yulua coughs out the water from her system, and she tells him that it is nothing. Hao sees that it is strange that she cannot swim, seeing that she has a large swimming pool in her house. Hao then tells her to tell him if she cannot swim, seeing that it is too dangerous. She tells him that she has seen others do it, and she thinks it is very easy. Hao becomes surprised, and he immediately hits her on her head, and he asks her if she is stupid. She immediately apologizes to him, and they notice that his clothes have become tighter due to the water, and they quickly go to get changed. They begin to rest, and Yulua tells him that there are other places that he can play in her house, but Hao tells her to relax as she needs to rest. But she tells him that it is rare for him to come to her house, and she wants him to be happy. Hao notices that she is off and asks her if there is something on her mind, as he has noticed that she has been acting off. She tells him that she has noticed that he does not spend much time with her as before, and he begins to wonder if she has done something wrong, and Hao laughs and tells her that she thinks too much. He begins to tell himself that he was affected by threats from Wei, as she tells him that she does not want to see him hanging out with other girls, and he is afraid she will do something bad to Yua. Hao tells her that she is not the problem, as there are things that are bothering him, and he needs to get it done, and she offers to help, but he tells her that it is not necessary. She tells him that she will not leave him, and he tells her that he does not want to drag her into his affairs, and he would handle it by himself, and as soon as everything is over they will go back to how they were. She immediately tells him that she does not want to be separate from him, and she would like to be with him forever. Hao becomes speechless, and immediately tells her that he is sorry, and she tells him that she will go back to her room first. Hao begins to watch her while she leaves, and he becomes speechless. Hao sits alone and begins to think of all that has happened, and the housekeeper comes in and asks him if Yua has troubled him. Hao tells him that it is not her problem, but because of some reason that he distanced himself from her. The housekeeper begins to tell Hao how much she values him, and how she hardly smiles but does so whenever they are together, and he tells him that if he suddenly ignores her, she will notice and feel it in a very bad way. He then asks Hao if Yuhua has mentioned to him that she has been blackmailed by her classmates, and Hao sees that she has mentioned something like that before, and the housekeeper begins to tell him about how she was being used to collect money by her classmates, and which later resulted in bullying. He tells him that Yuhua came back from school all beaten up, and her mom intervened in the matter, which made her classmates hate her in the school. He also tells him that she has found a new friend, and she is afraid of losing him again. Hao immediately becomes more worried about her after hearing all the housekeeper has said, and he asks if he can see her. He tells Hao that the maid will take him to her, and the maid takes him to the moonlight, and Hao sees Yuhua standing close to the window. Yuhua tells Hao that she liked to gaze into the sky in the past until her dad's plane would pass her twice, and Hao tells her that her housekeeper has informed him of how she was treated and isolated in her old school, and he promises her that he will not leave her that easily. She then asks him the danger he is in, seeing that he cannot be with her because of it, and she promises to help him overcome it. She tells him that she wants to help him, and she does not want to regret not doing anything anymore, and she tells him of a friend that she lost because she was not able to do anything. She tells Hao that she can do anything for him, and Hao becomes surprised as he did not expect to see such a firm look from her, and he tells her that it is really difficult for her to help him, and they have to avoid it as much as possible, but he offers her something so that she will not feel bad. He then promises to come see her, as she has a lot of activities in her house, so that she will not be alone. She then asks him if he will find her annoying if she always calls him to play, and Hao tells her that he will not get angry, and he will be okay with her in her home. He continues to talk about all the things that they can do in her house, and she immediately goes to hug him, and she begins to thank him for all he has done for her, and she tells him that he is the person she likes the most. Wei wakes up from a terrible dream, and she asks her servant for the time, and she is told that the time is 11, and the servant tells her that she has not slept well and if she would need a doctor. She becomes speechless, and she tells her servant not to bother and asks her how the blood moon research is going, and she is told that there is no progress, and she tells her servant to go back to her work. Wei stands up and puts on her clothes as she begins to wonder what Hao is doing. Meanwhile, Hao is still with Yuhua, and she tells him that she wants to be friends with him for the rest of her life, and Hao sees that it is good. She suddenly tells him that she wants to kiss him, and he tells her to wait, and he begins to wonder where she learned it all, and she tells him that she doesn't know, but she just wants to kiss him. Hao then tells her that it is not good to be seen doing that in his house, and his phone suddenly begins to ring. He picks it up and sees that it is Wei, and he tells her that he is at a friend's house and he is busy. She immediately threatens him to come out of the house or she will go straight to his parents, and Hao immediately freaks out and warns her not to. She then tells him to come out of the villa, and the housekeeper comes in and tells him that a group of people are outside and they want to take him home, and he becomes shocked. Ho goes out and he begins to wonder why everything is in that manner, and Wei and Yuhua begin to stare at each other. Yuhua immediately tells Hao that he will protect him and he should not be afraid of Wei, and Ho becomes surprised at what she said. Wei laughs and asks her if she thinks she can talk nonsense because she is from the Min family, and Hao tries to stop them and tells Wei that he will go with her if she still wants him to. Hao then tells Yuhua that he will go with her, and it is not an issue, but Yuhua stops him and tells her that she is not friendly and she cannot hand him over to her. Hao becomes surprised, and he begins to watch as the events unfold, and Wei tells her that Hao is her man and it is not up to her to make decisions, and she orders Hao to get into the car. Hao tells Wei that he is not her man and warns her not to use it again, and Yuhua tells her that she is not allowed to order him around. Yuhua then attacks Wei, but Wei uses her hands to block Yuhua from hitting her. She then tries to attack Yuhua, but she dodges it, and Hao tells her to back off, and Wei becomes angry at Yuhua and tells her that she will teach her a good lesson. Hao gets into the car, and he tells her that she is so awesome fighting in front of his friend's house, but she tells him that they will talk at home. Wei begins to talk in a very impolite way to him, and he tells her to change her bad attitude as he is not sure of how she became the president, and he begins to wonder if she came through the back door to get to the position. They begin to argue inside the car, and she tells him that if he was not hanging out with other women, she would have not gotten worked up. She tells him that she has always cared about him, but he tells her not to come close to him as he is not the man she used to be around, and he does not like it. Wei becomes surprised, and she tells Hao that she has never had a man before, and Hao becomes surprised and asks her if she has ever been in love. Hao sees that she is serious, and he has to be less serious with her as he finds it hard to believe that she has never dated a man before. They arrive at their destination, and she tries to ask him about Yuhua, and he tells her that they are just friends, and he begins to wonder why she is threatening him to come over. She then tells him about her marriage proposal and tells him that no one deserves to have him except her. Hao becomes surprised and tells her that she is not serious, and Hao sees that if she is serious, he will have to for the sake of his family. He then tells her that there are so many men in the world and begins to wonder why she is coming after him. She tells him that there is no second chance in life and she will get what she wants in her current life. Hao sees that the topic is meaningless to him, and he tries to leave, but she drags him back and asks him who told him to leave. She begins to bite his ears, and he begins to go back and he accidentally breaks a plate. He then asks for the price, and she tells him that it is worth 200 million, and he becomes surprised and begins to wonder how he will pay back. Wei immediately tells him that he is going to pay it, and Hao sees that she is not serious, as it is impossible for him seeing that he does not have that kind of money. She then tells him that if he cannot afford the money, he should be her man, and she tells him that since she is also responsible, he will have to pay 100 million, and he has to pay it in 10 months' time, and if he cannot pay it, he has to bargain with his body. Hao sees that he cannot afford it, and he tells her that a man should not live with depression for a very long time, and he begins to think of another way as he sees that he cannot eat soft rice. He gets to his house, and he begins to wonder why his sister is outside, and she tells him that she is waiting for him. He tells her that there is no need to wait outside, and she begins to wonder what he is carrying, and he tells her that it is a broken antique bowl, and she begins to think that he gets an antique bowl, and she promises to get one for him. He tells her not to, and he asks her how much she has saved, and she tells him that she has saved up to 4 million, and she begins to wonder why he is interested in her deposits. She begins to wonder if he has run into any financial difficulties, and she plans to go get her card, and he holds her hand and tells her that he was just asking casually. Goes back to his room, and he sees that the only way he can raise such money is to live broadcast, and he begins to broadcast. He sees an offer to take off his mask, but almost considers it but stops, and he tries singing, and he sees that it has some effects on them. Hao sees that he will pass the trial, and he begins to wonder what Shibamo is, and he looks up the meaning and sees that he will not pass the trial anymore. He sees that he can give the boss a separate song, and he sees that in order to make money, it's not about selling looks. He also has to fight. He begins to sing another song, and the boss gives him 5 more yachts, and he thanks the boss for sending more yachts, and he sees that he is receiving so many gifts, and he sees that he will try to satisfy all the requirements. He thanks the bosses for the gifts, and he tells them that it will be all for song requests, and he sees that the income he got from singing is higher than the ones he got from playing games, and he sees that it is still not enough. He suddenly receives a phone call, and he sees that it is from Wei, and he asks her why she wants him to pay back the money, and she tells him to take a selfie as she wants to see him. Ho becomes angry at why she called him a fox, and he sees that he can sell the photos to her at a lesser rate, and he immediately contacts Yeshua, and he asks her if she can lend him that amount of money, and she tells him to hold on as she would like to have a look. She checks and sees that the cash with her is not enough, and she asks the housekeeper where her card is as she needs millions, and her housekeeper tells her that Harem does not want her spending money anyhow, and she asks him to ask her mom for permission. He comes back and tells her that her mom will not permit him to give that amount of money to a friend, and she tells Hao that her mom does not agree. Hao becomes shocked as there is no way, but he sees that the money is too much for him to pay off. Hao wakes up and he sees that it is a day of racking his brain to make money so that he can pay off debts. He sees that he has made a huge profit from his live broadcast, and he decides to call the moderator, and he plans to ask her if she has any other streaming tips. He calls Song, and she tells him that she didn't expect that he would call her, and he asks her if she has anything for his content, and she tells him that she has, and she advised him that he should try a game that has just been released, and he switches on his computer, and he asks her to send the game to him. She immediately sends the game to him, and he sees that he will give it a try later. He then asks her if she can get him a homepage, and she tells him that if he goes live with the game, she will surely give him a homepage since his popularity has increased. He sees that the game is similar to something that he has played before, and he hangs the call and goes to play the game. He then goes live and he tells them that he will not be singing for them, but he tells them that he will be playing a game. They begin to wonder if it will be rubbish, but he tells them to keep watching as it will be fun. He begins to play and he sees that one of his members keeps asking about his gender, and he immediately turns on his camera and continues to play. Kin sees that the popularity of his life has increased, and she goes to his room and asks him if he would want to eat noodles, and she tells him that he will go to bed after eating. They begin to read the comments, and he sees that they are talking about his sisters, and she asks them if they are a perfect match. Ho begins to wonder what she is talking about, and he sees that love is forbidden. She hugs him, and she tells him that it is getting late, and she will be waiting for him on the bed. Ho begins to read the comments, and he sees that they are bad as their management is watching, and he does not want his live to be banned. He then tells his viewers that his live has ended and will continue at the same time the following day. He looks at the statistics, and he sees that the traffic on the page is good, but it is not enough. His sister then calls him and tells him that he has played the game for too long, and she tells him to come to the bed. Ho becomes surprised at seeing her, and she tells him that she will give him a massage. He thinks about it for a while, and finally agrees to the massage, and she begins to massage him. Ho thinks that she was planning to do something else to him, and they talk for a while, and he falls asleep. He wakes up the following morning, and he sees a message, and he thinks that it's from his sister. He then sees that it is from Wei, and he freaks out and tells her not to rush him as he sees that it is terrible. Hao sees Yu Wu in school, and he begins to wonder why her school bag is so big, and she drops it and reveals a bag filled with gold, and she tells him that it is all for him. Ho becomes surprised, and she brings out another diamond ring, and she tells him that she is not sure if it is expensive, and Ho holds her, and he tells her that she must have cheated her family to get the items, and he tells her to inform her housekeeper to come and take them, and she sees that he is angry, and she tells Hai that she only wanted to help. He thanks her and he tells her that he doesn't want her to make a mistake, and he tells her that if she really wants to help him, she can help him get someone that is good in antique appraisal, and he will be happy. He then goes to the shop, and he tells them that he wants to inquire about a bowl, and he follows them into another room. They check the bowl and they see that it is the real deal, and Ho becomes worried as he has to work for the bowl. He then asks them if it can be fixed, and he drops it with them, seeing that it will be for a nice price. He then begins to meet, and he meets with Hong, the girl that gave him her card at the shop, and he sees that she went round to change, and he sees that it was in her mind. The girls in the club see that she is so lucky to have a handsome man accompanying her, and Hao sees that it is really shameful that he wants to walk with someone in his arms, and he sees that there is no other way. She tells Hao that he should let them be a couple for a discount, and he tells her that there is no problem, and he asks her how much he can sell the bowl, and she tells him that it can be sold for millions, and she tells him that the last time it was taken away by his friends. Suddenly, Mu barges in and tries to give Hao money to come with her, but Hong slaps her and tells her to keep her mouth clean as she begins to wonder what she is doing with her friend. Mu gets angry and tells her squad to kill Hong, and they begin to fight. They begin to beat up Hong, and Hao begins to wonder what he will do as they are sisters, and he needs the help of Hong. He immediately stops Mu and blows Mu as he sees that it is inevitable. Hao beats them up, and he begins to wonder why Hong is still standing there, and he tells her to run away. She tells him to go on as she has something to do with the thugs, and he tells her that if she asks someone to attack him, she should call the police. Hao immediately hurries out and goes into a taxi. Suddenly, the taxi man is called, and he is told that the boss wants Hao. Hao is captured, and he begins to listen to the conversation of his kidnappers, and he sees that they plan on selling him. His plaster is taken away from his mouth, and he tells them that he is a student, and he has not provoked any evil forces, and a lady tries to sway him to be hers, and Hao tells her that he likes strong women, and he should be released so that they can practice. The lady sees that she likes a strong horse and orders that they let him loose. Hao sees that there are many of them in the building, and he begins to look for a way to defeat them all. She suddenly jumps towards him, and Hao dodges her and begins to run away. He then picks up a bat and throws it at her, and she sees that it is heading towards her, and she dodges it. He uses another pipe to hit her hands, which gets her angry, and Hao tells her to come at him. Meanwhile, Hong is captured, and she tells Mu not to mess around, and she begins to mock Hong, and she immediately remembers what she has said, and she becomes surprised. Ho begins to beat up all the mercenaries that were sent, and Mu comes in, and she sees that he has beaten them all up, and he tells her that the Lord is there. Suddenly, Wei comes in, and she becomes surprised that she was the one, and she tells her that the 200 million antique is hers, and she becomes more scared. Mu immediately falls to her knees, and she begins to beg for forgiveness from Wei, and Wei tells her that she will remove her from the hair if her family and expel her. Mu becomes angry and plans to kill Wei for the punishment given to her, and Albatron stops her and immediately snaps her neck. Hao reminds her of what he has said earlier, and he tells her that she is not one that got to the position of president by going through the back door, and he tells her that it was all arranged by her as a means to suppress the Mu family. She asks Hao if he thinks that she can do it, and Hao tells her that he is not familiar with her, and she tells him that they need to get familiar with themselves. Hao tells her not to mess around, and she charges towards him, and he tries to use the stick with him, but she uses a punch to break it, and Hao begins to wonder if she is human. She tells him to follow her, and she tells him that she is not asking him, instead, she is telling him. She carries him, and he tells her to drop him as he can walk, and they head out of the building. White puts him in a helicopter, and he sees that to be carried by a woman is very shameful, and he sees Hong at the top of the building as he is being carried away, and he begins to talk with Wei in the helicopter, and they begin to talk about Mu, and she asks him if he is a bad person to him, and she asks him to answer, but he tells her that he does not know. She then asks him if she is a bad person to her, and he tells her she doesn't count, and she asks him why she does not count, as they are all kidnappers. Wei immediately kisses him, and they arrive at her house, and she begins to take off her clothes, and Ho begins to wonder what she is doing, but she tells him not to move. Ho lies on the bed, and he tells her not to mess around, and she lies on him and tells him that he should consider repaying her as she has saved him so many times, but Ho tells her that he has let her kiss him, and he begins to wonder what she wants. She tells him that she wants him, and he tells her to stop it as she begins to undress him. She then asks him to formally date him, and she can satisfy him, and Yuhua calls and begins to look for Hao's whereabouts. She then tells her housekeeper that she will be going out for a while, and her housekeeper tells her that it is late, but he tells her that it is urgent. Meanwhile, Ho begins to negotiate a deal with Wei, and he tells her to sit on his lap, and she begins to wonder what he plans on achieving by doing that, and she sits and she tells him that it is only 3 minutes and there's nothing to it. Suddenly, someone comes in and interrupts them, and Wai could not hold on for 3 minutes. Hao sees that she did not have much of a private life, and Wai tells her to forget it and tell her what is so urgent. She tells Wei that Yuhua has come to her door and she is clamoring to see Hao. Hearing this, they become surprised that she is there, and Wei tells her to deal with it without having to disturb her. However, her servant tells her that she is Min's daughter. Wei tells her secretary that she is fired, and she tells Hao to come with her since she wants to see him, with plans to fulfill her wishes. Meanwhile, Hao sees that Wei is angry and he sees that there might be another conflict, but Yuhua tells her to let Hao go or she will call the police. Hao becomes surprised that she came and she tells him that she has come to rescue him. Yuhua takes off her clothes and tells her that it is a one-on-one battle, and Wei agrees that they finished the fight that they did not finish the last time. Hao sees that there is no need trying to stop them, and he immediately orders a taxi and plans to go home. On seeing this, Wei tells him that she will take him home, and she buys the taxi from the owner and plans to drive him home. However, Hao sees that it is outrageous to open the door to the outrageous mother. If you made it this far, let us know how you would react if you were Hao in this situation. Leave your comments down below, and kindly subscribe and blow this video up with your likes. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.